Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, The Future of Threads. My name is Anthony Schiavo, and I'll be your host today. Our speaker today is Mike Holman. As a VP of Research, he leads our materials research. If you have any questions for Mike during today's webinar, please enter them into the questions box on your screen. We'll have time to answer some questions at the end of the presentation. Before we get started, I'd like to say a few words about Lux Research. Lux partners with our clients to help drive smarter innovation and faster growth. With Lux, you get access to our primary and secondary research through our member site, and you can engage technology experts like Mike and his team on issues such as innovation strategy and tech scouting. We also offer custom consulting solutions for our clients. We serve a wide range of consumer-facing companies and companies that make up the value chain of industries such as the automotive sector, apparel, and consumer goods. And we help them navigate the shifting consumer demands and expectations in these spaces, track and monitor alternative business models that might be a threat, and understand the impact of digital technologies, as well as the opportunities those create. And I think you'll see all of these different elements in today's webinar. So with that, I'm thrilled to introduce you to Mike Holman. Mike, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Anthony, and thanks to everyone for joining the webinar today. I'm looking forward to having the chance to talk with you about one of those consumer-facing industries that we've been doing a lot of work in lately, and that's textiles and apparel. And it's an exciting and fashion. So that's an exciting space to be involved with right now, because it is a really dynamic area and an area where there is a lot of new innovation happening. Obviously, fashion has always been very innovative. Fashion has always been changing, but what we're seeing, in our work with clients and in our following the market, is that a real resurgence of the impact of tech innovation on fashion. And so I'll be talking about that, not just in terms of e-commerce and digital marketing and things like that, though that's all, definitely very real and very, very important. But there's a lot of hard tech, deep tech, material science, AI, real cutting edge technology there as well, and really novel tech innovation in the industry that's, I think, creating a lot of opportunities as well as generating a lot of challenges and questions. So to walk through the agenda for the presentation today, just to sort of get us oriented, I'll talk a little bit, tee that up a little bit more and talk a little bit about what we see causing disruption in the fashion and apparel industry. Talk about how tech innovation is reshaping the industry, what that means, what are some of the real specific ways that these innovations are changing the model from old to new. And finally, talk a little bit about what that means for the industry in the future. And here, looking not just at the opportunities and the impact, on brands and retailers, but very much back into the suppliers, whether it's the back end of the whole sort of value chain, whether it's material suppliers, other technology and equipment developers, players all throughout that supply chain. So to start off, what is it that we see that's happening in fashion and apparel? I think a good case study, a good place to start with, is looking at a company like Forever 21, which was, really one of the more innovative companies very successful companies in the sort of the fast fashion segment, taking off from a single store in Los Angeles in the mid 1980s to become, a major multi-billion-dollar global brand. But as many of you, I think, are probably familiar, what's happened over the last several years is, as often the case, that the disruptor has become the disrupted here. And in fact, Forever 21 has fallen on hard times. This is a chart from even before the coronavirus outbreak. Forever 21's revenues for this year were expected to slide to nearly half of what they'd been at their at their peak. Obviously, they're going to do much worse than that in the event. But what happened here? What was it that was going wrong? Certainly an over-reliance on physical retail and a lack of execution on the e-commerce channel was a part of the story. But the company also faced other issues. It didn't address one of those real important consumer concerns, particularly for the fast fashion segment in sustainability, and in general didn't stay ahead of the curve and had a real lack of distinctive product. So it adds up to a company that really failed to innovate, and that lack of innovation, particularly on some of those really crucial variables like sustainability, sent it into a spiral. Now, this is evidently not just my diagnosis for Forever 21, but one that's shared by a lot of people in the industry, because we really are seeing apparel companies turning more to tech innovation. You can look at initiatives like Fashion for Good, where a number of major brands are getting together to pool their resources and explore and invest in some pretty cutting edge technologies. And again, not just e-commerce and digital marketing, though that's certainly in there too, but these sort of hard tech companies in AI and recycling and materials, coatings, and so on. And there's a quote from a contact of mine in the industry that I think sums this up really well. He said, traditionally, fashion companies have not been involved in R&D, but they are now getting much more involved with the pressure to solve these problems, like sustainability and like the need for product differentiation, like the need for improved supply chains. They are now reaching out and getting much more directly involved with this innovation community. So it may not be a matter of all the brands out there are going out and establishing R&D labs, though some are, but definitely the sense that these companies need to be much more involved in the ecosystem for this kind of tech innovation. So apparel really is now a technology and a tech innovation driven industry. And I want to dig now a little bit more into what that means. What does that mean for you if you're a brand or a brand owner or a retailer, or what does it mean for other participants in the value chain as well? So to take that look at how tech innovation is reshaping the industry. And we really do see these innovations kind of moving the apparel industry from an old model to a new one. And I'll dive into a few examples of what that looks like here. Under the old model, first of all, going to that sustainability point, there's maybe concern about waste materials and pollution and things like that from factories and textile mills. But that was really more of the concern of the suppliers, and they, if anyone, were really concerned about the waste materials at the end of the value chain as well. Now you're seeing much more of brands taking the lead on those questions of sustainability, on those questions of textile waste, on those questions of environmentally friendly textile processing, and so on. And a great example of that is H&M. Again, another fast fashion brand, but one that has leaned really hard into addressing this sustainability question. So they're working with companies, again, not just saying to their suppliers, make sure it's sustainable, but actually really actively engaging themselves at the cutting edge with companies like RenewCell that has a technology for processing waste garments back into a new cellulose fiber that can be spun into new textiles and new garments. So they call this the circulose material, alluding to that sort of vision of the circular economy of waste converted back into valuable products. And the reason that you're seeing H&M engage, and what we're advising many of our clients to do is and the reason we're inviting many of, or encouraging many of our clients to engage here also is because there are some very interesting technologies and opportunities here, but there are a limited number of companies, and there's a lot of work in terms of scale up still to do here as well. So engaging early with many of these companies, helping to facilitate that scale up and helping make sure that you're going to have access to reliable supply of some of these new recycled materials is going to be critical to helping brands successfully address these sustainability concerns. So another change is moving from an old model, which, you know, virtually every garment outside of a few bespoke high-end segments is sold off the rack in standard sizes, to a model where products are much more personalized. And this is, again, tying into one of those general trends Anthony mentioned we see in a lot of consumer-facing industries, from food to medicine to here in apparel, of greater consumer demands for personalization. And technology innovation plays a big role in that, in delivering on that expectation. One great example of that is in 3D printing, which has been applied probably most frequently or most directly to the footwear segment. You've seen a number of brands here, but a great example is New Balance, working with 3D printing, in this case partnering with some leading printer developers and Form Labs and HP to customize shoes and insoles for better performance, better comfort for the consumer. So you can get, like, if you have, like I do, plantar fasciitis and you need, you know, some custom support, you can actually get your feet scanned and get a shoe with a sole that's 3D printed in such a way that it provides, you know, that lattice that you see on the sole of the shoe is designed in such a way that you get customized support and customized performance. And the key here to making these type of collaborations work is to make sure that you are partnered in with a complete ecosystem around 3D printing. So our materials research team has been exploring the way that 3D printing is really transitioning from a technology that is very heavily reliant on, or is very much used for prototyping and testing, to one that is increasingly being used for production. And having a company that has not just a good 3D printing technology, but good, you know, manufacturing control software, good design software, good interface with the data inputs that are needed to execute on that personalization is really important. So a company like Form Labs that does have a strong ecosystem around their 3D printers, in addition to the strong 3D printing technology itself, is really important for successfully bringing this customization to manufacturing. And finally, a final way we can look at the old model changing is from one where brands really had pretty far-flung supply chains and pretty limited visibility into the sort of the full network of suppliers that were providing the materials into their and ultimately the production of their garments, to one where there's a lot higher, not just visibility, but real engagement and ownership in the supply chain. And obviously that's important to be able to deliver on some of these goals, like sustainability and like personalization. It's not enough to just sort of be able to send a design or a pattern off to a mill in in Southeast Asia and just take whatever comes back at the right price, right? You have to be much more engaged than that. And our digital transformation team here at Lux has done a lot of work on the digital transformation of supply chain management. So there's a lot of innovations and companies we could point to here, but a good example, and one with a obvious relevance here for fashion and apparel, is a sourcing platform called SupplyShift, and they're working with brands like Wrangler, which has, again, a very, very wide and far-flung supply chain, 115 facilities around the globe, that can be hard to consistently collect and collate and analyze data on to really understand the supply chain impact. So Supply Shift is able to bring all of that information from all of those suppliers together, really at a data layer effectively to the physical inputs and physical goods that Wrangler is using and moving, to put the brand more in control of your sustainability. That's been a big focus of this particular partnership, but also kind of understanding and having a more active collaboration and communication with these partners is really important. With the suppliers is really important to deliver on the flexibility and personalization goals, and to be able to continue to deliver differentiated products to consumers. So again, we see these technology innovations that we've been speaking about, whether it's in materials and in digital transformation and AI, or novel production technologies, really helping to reshape this industry to one that is much more sustainable, one that is much more responsive and personalized for consumers, and one where the brands have a greater degree of engagement and control in the supply chain to help deliver on that promise. So what is then sort of the upshot of that for companies? Obviously, you want to look at and engage with some of the technologies and opportunities that I've highlighted here, and to be aware of those changes. But what are the sort of the more strategic approaches that you need to take to be well positioned in the future here? And I think there's a variety that can come up for a variety of different types of stakeholders here. So I think for brands, one of the most important things to do is to really make sure you're living into that promise of I alluded to up top of getting engaged with the innovation ecosystem. And I think in here, building out teams that are dedicated to technology scouting, and even to corporate venturing, corporate venture capital teams that may make equity investments in startups as well, so that these brands can really get tied into the innovation ecosystem, and to help drive the adoption of some of these relevant deep tech innovations. That's something we've seen happen in industries ranging from pharmaceuticals to consumer packaged goods to chemicals to oil and gas over the years. The sort of rise of tech scouting and venturing as key business functions for innovation, and apparel is going that way as well. Patagonia is a great example of that. They have created a corporate venture fund called Tin Shed Ventures, where they've invested in even technologies as kind of crunchy as NewMat, which is developing a novel class of materials called metal organic frameworks. So Drishti Masand on our materials team here has just put out a great report looking at these materials. They're sort of a novel class of very highly porous materials that can absorb different types of gases and other molecules. Patagonia is looking at how to incorporate those in garments to improve customer comfort and other issues, but they have a wide variety of applications, from energy to gas storage, to water treatment as well. Finally, secondly, looking at materials companies, I talked about the fact that these textile suppliers, or these brands, are getting much more engaged with their suppliers, with their supply chain, and that creates an opportunity for materials companies, because again, we've worked a lot with chemical materials companies, and I've always often heard from them, textiles, apparel, those are not markets that we consider as attractive to get into, because the market is so fragmented. There's so many different textile mills and suppliers around the world, and the brands don't really help you to drive adoption of new materials. Well, that's changing, particularly with the emphasis on sustainability, the emphasis on performance and differentiation. So you can have examples now like BASF working closely with Adidas. Their novel TPU foam, this boost material, became actually the foundation of Adidas's one of Adidas's sneaker lines, and was able to get driven into that supply chain. It was a very successful story, both for BASF as well as for Adidas, where having this differentiated material was a significant driver of the success of their lines of footwear. So more opportunities to drive materials into the new materials and material innovations into the supply chain. And finally, for IT players, there's an opportunity with digital technologies to create ecosystems around some of these modular platforms. There's been a lot of work that's happened, efforts to incorporate a sensor into this shoe or into this garment to do, monitor your heart rate or something like that. And a lot of those haven't been successful. And to be honest, a lot of them will continue to fail. But what you're seeing with initiatives like Google's Jacquard tag is they're creating this sort of modular device. And in this case, the Jacquard tag is something that's a touch sensitive chip that connects to a phone and can be incorporated in a variety of different ways into a variety of different garments, like the jacket from Levi's here, to allow the garment to communicate with the phone. So it's both not necessarily designed for or limited to one specific use case, but allows the designers to have and developers to have the freedom to imagine a variety of different ways of using it, but tying into a very well-established platform, Google, obviously, the Android mobile ecosystem that can take advantage of those capabilities to provide a variety of different functions. So using the jacket to control the turn-by-turn directions, the music in your headphones via your mobile device. So again, I think we'll see a lot of failed experiments here, but the fact that these capabilities are increasing now gives people the opportunity to experiment, and I think we will see some successful ones that come out of that experimentation as well. So finally, just to wrap up here, our outlook is obviously very bullish on this space and very bullish on the opportunity here as fashion and apparel are going to be increasingly taking advantage of technology innovation. Obviously, design and marketing are going to continue to be really critical and important. But companies that can make use of technology successfully are going to have an advantage. Sustainability is probably one of the most has been really one of the most important trends for companies to be on top of, and to make a focus of their investments and their monitoring and tech innovation. That's definitely what we've seen with many of our clients in this space. But how you can use technology to drive differentiated functionality, personalization, and improve control of the supply chain are all important areas of focus for these brands as well. And finally, there's also a lot of, I haven't spoken about it as much in this webinar, but there is a lot of business model innovation. Trends like garment rentals and direct consumer models can be are also very important trends in the industry. And when you can have tech innovation that helps to reinforce those trends, so for instance, recycled or recyclable materials that can work with a rental garment rental model to allow for more efficient recycling of garments at end of life. Those are the areas where these kind of technology trends overlap with some of those business model trends, can be where some of the most compelling opportunities can be found. So thank you all for your attention so far, and I think we do have some time to take a few questions.
Thanks, Mike, for that tremendous presentation. This is one of my favorite areas of research because it is so relatable. It is so integral to our lives, and it's something we interact with every day. We do have a few questions coming in now, and we have a few minutes for questions. So the first question is, I think, one that's on everyone's mind. Of course, COVID-19 is dominating the news cycle. How do you think COVID-19 will impact the apparel space, or maybe the impact of these, impact these specific technologies?
Yeah, and that's a question we've been grappling with, not just for this industry, but for clients, really across the board. We are actually, working with a lot of clients on that front, and seeing a lot of trends that are, obviously extremely disruptive in the thing to retail in the near term. But we're also really trying to think about what the impact, the way that behaviors and opportunities are going to be different in the future, because it's certainly a big enough disruption that things aren't just going to go back to normal. So I do think trends around sort of remote commerce, where e-commerce and alternatives, technologies to allow, in this case, for viewing and trialing of garments online, people are going to get a lot more used to using those, and that's going to continue to, to pull forward in the future. I think that, there is a lot of talk in many areas about deglobalization and the impact on supply chains, and is, we all going to go back to domestic production, so we're not reliant on factories in China or Southeast Asia. I don't think the global trade is going to get put back in the bottle by any means, but there is going to be a greater focus on resiliency in supply chains, and I think in agility and flexibility and adaptability in business in general. So I think ultimately, as disruptive as it's going to be in the near term, and as I think challenging as it can make it for many companies to be able to, invest in new technologies, or to take risky bets, it is going to ultimately, I think, push the industry further along the path of some of these trends, towards greater customization and towards greater visibility and engagement with the supply chain.
So you talked a lot about the supply chain, both during your response to that question and during your presentation. How important do you see sort of the waste, the end of life for textiles? Is that really a key differentiator? Is that going to be a crucial part of the supply chain going forward?
Yeah, I believe that it is. It's certainly something that consumers care about, and there's always sort of the question of whether the priority on sustainability goes away or gets really pulls back, and at times when economic times are tougher. But I think there's a lot of strong drivers around sustainability, and it is going to be something that consumers continue to care about. And I think it also overlaps with some of those trends we talked about with resiliency. If you can use whether it's for garment and apparel and textile waste, or for single-use plastics, plastic packaging, and so on, if you can make use of waste materials as feedstocks and make those back into valuable products, realize that vision of the circular economy, that makes your supply chain, that makes your local ecosystem that much more robust. And that's going to be another reason that it remains, I think, a priority for a lot of companies and brands.
Okay. And we have one last question here. So we have time for. Can you comment on smart clothing or wearable technologies? Is that going to be an important driver for the apparel industry going forward?
Mm-hmm. I think it is. I think it's going to be a little bit more long-term than some of the things that we see here. The sort of the killer app for a lot of these wearables or smart textile products, outside of some specialized examples like like industrial or enterprise sort of uses for worker monitoring, worker safety, and things like that. I think there's some real opportunities there. But in terms of more consumer-facing applications, there's a lot of some of these products that can be a bit more gimmicky, or or address a segment like high-performance athletes or something like that, where there can be some real value. But I think as companies, as one, these technologies come down in cost and become more accessible, and as companies figure out ways to sort of make use of the data that you can get from these smart garments to provide a real valuable service to the customer, to the consumer, not just to say, well, this is you took this many steps today, or something like that, but to provide real sort of actionable advice and input for them, whether it's related to health and fitness, or related to ways that other ways that can sort of concretely improve their lives. I do think you'll see growth for that, and in new opportunities that come out of those type of smart textile innovations. But maybe not quite as pressing of an issue as some of the things we've talked about today around sustainability and personalization and so on.
Well, that's all the time we have today. Thank you so much. If you have any questions after this webinar about the content or about Lux, please email us directly at questions@luxresearchinc.com, and someone will get back to you. If you submitted a question and we didn't have time for it, we'll reach out to you shortly. You can also follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter, or follow our blog at luxresearchinc.com for ongoing information and insights. Thank you again for your attention, and thanks to our presenter, Mike Holman. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you all. Have a great day.